Hey there, Philip here from Manning the Fort. Today, I want to finish the story of Sigismund that I began at the end of October 2021. In the previous video, I talked about Sigismund during the Horus Heresy up through Warhawk, the most recent Siege of Terra book as of the time of recording this. If you want to hear how he became the Emperor's champion and started walking down the path toward the Imperial cult, you can check out that video, which should be linked on screen now. While at the time of writing we don't have the fine details of how the rest of the heresy and its immediate aftermath play out, we do know generally what happens. Horus is slain, and the traitors are expelled from Terra, but the Emperor himself is mortally wounded and effectively removed as the active leader of mankind. Now lacking the uniting presence of Horus, the rebel Astartes lose much of their cohesion. The remaining Imperial forces meanwhile mount a counter-offensive to push the traitor legions back. This becomes known as the Scouring. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any full novels covering the events of the Scouring. Rather, we have a number of references to significant events that have shown up in the lore sections of various rulebooks and codexes over the years. As the Imperium attempts to regroup from the Siege of Terra, Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, becomes Imperial Regent, since Malcador the Sigillite is now dead. He has a plan to prevent another war like the Heresy from happening again. He drafts the Codex Astartes, which lays out how the Space Marines are to be organized and utilized going forward. Most significantly, he calls for the legions to be split. Over the years, the size of the legions has changed in the lore, but as of the Horus Heresy, a full-strength legion is seemingly in the area of 100,000 Marines. That many Astartes is enough to lay waste to an entire sector, and Guilliman believes that concentrating that much power in the hands of individual Primarchs is what allowed Horus to conduct his rebellion in the first place. The solution is to replace the legions with Space Marine chapters of about 1,000 Marines each. These chapters are to be drawn from those dismantled legions. This proposal causes a rift between the surviving Primarchs. Rogel Dorn, Vulcan, and Leman Russ are adamantly against dividing their legion's strength. That disagreement very nearly turns into a second Imperial Civil War, and at one point the Imperial Navy actually opens fire on an Imperial Fist ship. For the Imperial Fists, the other most noteworthy event in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy is undeniably the Iron Cage. The Iron Warriors construct what they call the Eternal Fortress on the world of Sebastus IV, which their Primarch, Perturabo, claims is unbreakable. Rogel Dorn, whose Imperial Fists are natural rivals to the Iron Warriors, declares that he will break the fortress and bring Perturabo back in an iron cage. The Iron Warriors, anticipating that it would be the Fists who came after them, have built their fortifications to be an absolute death trap designed to inflict as many casualties as possible. The way it's written in the Index Astartes books, Dorn knows that his proclamation will result in an absolute meat grinder of a siege and that many of his sons will die. He spent a week straight meditating in the device known as the Pain Glove. Yes, the Fists are apparently into some serious masochism, and he decided to relent and let Guilliman have his way. The Iron Cage is meant to be the last action of his legion. Guilliman opposes the action, but Dorn plans to use the siege as a way to effectively put the entire 7th Legion through the Pain Glove, metaphorically, so that they're ready for the new order of things on the other side. Ultimately, the siege is every bit as harrowing as Dorn anticipated, and then some. Perturabo and his Iron Warriors are in a position to potentially wipe out the Fists entirely until Guilliman and his Ultramarines intervene. Now, Philip, I hear you say, you haven't said a single thing about Sigismund, and this video is supposed to be about him. Well, you're right. Like I said, the lore on the Scouring is pretty limited, so we don't have a lot of detail at this point on what Sigismund himself is doing during that time, though it's reasonable to assume he's present for the Iron Cage, since the whole point was to send the entire legion. Where we do pick up with Sigismund is after the siege. Dorn stays true to his new course and agrees to have the Imperial Fists split up in what is known as the Second Founding, but the casualties were so great that there are only enough Marines left to fill a handful of chapters. Over the years, there seemed to be at least a couple of different numbers for exactly how many of those chapters there were. Either way, it's safe to assume that there are well under a tenth of the original 100,000 Marines left between the losses from the Heresy and the Scouring. One of those new chapters is the Black Templars. To lead them, Dorn chooses his first captain, Sigismund. For a while, this struck me as slightly odd, since Sigismund and Dorn had fallen out for a long time during the course of the Horus Heresy novels, but Warhawk tied that up rather well, reconciling father and son. While Dorn does ultimately give in to Guilliman's will, the Black Templars' bitterness toward the Codex Astartes has been noted several times, going all the way back to Codex Armageddon more than 20 years ago when the Templars got their very first special rules. In the most recent Codex supplement, published just a few weeks ago, the Ultramarines Primarch is referred to as Guilliman the Divisive, so those old wounds have never fully closed. It's said that the most zealous of the Imperial Fists are chosen to become Black Templars, but remember at this time that the Imperium is still nominally atheist, and the Space Marines certainly hold to that, so zealous in this instance probably has a very different meaning than what it does in the modern 40k setting. As soon as the chapter is founded, Sigismund swears an oath that his chapter will continue to prosecute the Emperor's Great Crusade forever. As an aside, it's pretty widely accepted at this point that the rules about chapter size do not apply to chapters on an active crusade, and the Black Templars are literally on an eternal crusade. This has been used as a loophole by many to explain why they have upwards of 5,000 Marines under arms at times. Under Sigismund's leadership, the Black Templars are active in continuing the Scouring and pushing the traitors into the Eye of Terror, a massive warp storm that serves as the primary sanctuary between their invasions of the Imperium. The planet of Cadia sits near the Eye, though it's not yet the fortress it will become later. Many in the Imperium believe that the war is done once the traitors are pushed back to the Eye of Terror and that they're gone forever, but not Sigismund. Sigismund appoints himself and his Templars as the guardians of Cadia, standing vigil to make sure the traitor Astartes never emerge again. When things really pick back up for Sigismund in fully fleshed out lore is with Black Legion by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, and there are going to be big spoilers for that book ahead. Within the Eye of Terror, Abaddon the Despoiler has been striving to become the new War Master of Chaos, replacing his father. His goal is to reunite the traitor legions as Horus did. The power vacuum created by Horus's death, combined with being driven out of the Imperium, has left the surviving rebels splintered and often fighting amongst each other. Combine that with the fact that they're progressively twisted more and more by the forces of chaos, since the traitors now live within a realm where the Chaos Gods have much more control and direct access to their souls and bodies. Over time, Abaddon becomes largely successful in uniting a force capable of venturing out of the Eye of Terror and into the Imperium of Man once again with his newly dubbed Black Legion. Now, time works strangely in the Eye of Terror. In Black Legion and the book that came before it, The Talon of Horus, the primary narrator, Iskandar Kaon, tells us that the subjective time for surviving traitor Astartes can vary widely. For some, not much time at all has seemingly passed since they were initially driven back from Terra. Others have spent subjective millennia in the Eye of Terror. Outside of the Eye, though, it has been more than 700 years. In those centuries, Sigismund has continued his vigil over the Cadian Gate. It's speculated that Space Marines are effectively immortal when it comes to a natural lifespan, it's just that they almost all meet a violent death after at most a few centuries of service. Sigismund, though, is perhaps the most skilled Astartes to exist at this point. Combine that with the fact that his crusade has essentially amounted to centuries of being a prison guard, and he's still very much alive and well. Oh, and he still hates Abaddon. While Warhawk was written after Black Legion, in universe chronology sees Sigismund single out Abaddon as his opposite number amongst Horus's forces centuries before this ultimate meeting. When Abaddon and the Black Legion emerge from the Eye, Sigismund and the Black Templars are waiting. I have to admit, as a Black Templars fan, Sigismund's introduction in Black Legion gave me goosebumps. Kaon describes him as a Night King when the Eternal Crusader hails the Vengeful Spirit, Abaddon's flagship. Sigismund has clearly aged a great deal, but he's still driven by the same cold fury that was described during his final duel with Karn in Warhawk. Even Abaddon himself is described as being awestruck before throwing some barbs Sigismund's way. The High Marshal responds with the founding oaths of his chapter. I will suffer not the unclean to live. I will uphold the honor of the emperor. I abhor and destroy the witch. I accept any challenge, no matter the odds. Caon says these are not vows so much as they are promises to Sigismund's foes, as well as those of his Black Templars. I've said in previous videos that one of the things I like most about Aaron Dembski-Bowden's writing is his gift for showing us the internal thoughts of the Astartes as people, not just one-dimensional vehicles for action scenes. In this meeting, some interesting parallels are drawn between the Black Templars and the Black Legion. Abaddon even jokes that his forces are not the only Black Legion, since the Templars are so much larger than a traditional chapter. Beyond the surface-level similarities, though, Iskandar Caon gives us a deeper look from his own perspective. The Black Legion are so named because they repainted their armor to erase the visual signs of loyalty to their old legions in pursuit of Abaddon's goals. It's also symbolic of the mourning of the death of Horus and the promise to avenge their original failed rebellion. In Caon's inner monologue, he tells us that he sees the same mournful, hopeful defiance in Sigismund, and that he carried the stain of failure. Caon believes the Black Templars are very much the loyalist mirror of the Black Legion, viewed through a lens of loyal zeal and indignant righteousness. This recalls a lot of how the Horus Heresy itself came to happen. The story of Caon's original legion, the Thousand Sons, reads like a Greek tragedy, with the actions of mortals and even demigods doomed to being twisted by the whims of even more powerful beings. The same can be said of Horus himself, who was manipulated and shown partial truths to push him to rebel against the Emperor. It's those manipulations and their consequences that separate the Black Legion and the Black Templars. Sigismund's title of Emperor's Champion becomes quite literal for the Black Legion. He is the avatar of the Imperium itself in their eyes. Abaddon directly says as much. This mirrors how I felt Sigismund was portrayed at the end of Warhawk. I proposed that Sigismund's nascent faith in the imperial cult and determination to take back what had been lost in the heresy made him the representative of the Imperium at large. Abaddon says the reason he is the embodiment of the Imperium is that he is ignorance incarnate, and the incarnation of blind loyalty to the deceiving emperor. My view and Abaddon's view are basically the same thing, seen through different perspectives. While Abaddon hates what Sigismund represents, he says he admires him as a man, again recalling the brotherhood between the Astartes that has been lost. But the die has been cast for a long time, and it's molded both leaders into what they are today. By killing Sigismund, Abaddon can strike a blow against what he represents. We don't hear Sigismund's inner monologue, but it's reasonable to assume he feels the same about Abaddon. He never addresses the Black Legion directly, only stating his vows, his promises to his foes, and giving the single order: attack. The space battle in Black Legion is a brutal one, led by the Eternal Crusader and the Vengeful Spirit. Like their respective forces, the two vessels are dark mirrors of each other, both being massive Gloriana-class battleships. Fun side note, the Ophidium Gulf is a Black Templar ship that gets name-checked during the battle. We know it survives the battle because it will eventually be destroyed by the totally loyal Dark Angels millennia later. During the battle, Abaddon and his elite bodyguard board the Eternal Crusader, hoping to behead the Imperial resistance by killing Sigismund himself. As we've discussed, in the days of the Horus Heresy, Sigismund was nearly unparalleled in single combat amongst the Astartes. The black sword he is given and his investiture as the Emperor's champion seem to enhance him even further. While Sigismund is centuries older, Iskandar Caon makes it clear that he doesn't believe he's become much weaker. He also describes Sigismund's faith as glowing in his aura. It should be noted that Caon describes that faith as wholly unreligious, but I suspect that may be in part Aaron Dembski-Bowden himself speaking, as his portrayals of the Black Templars in Hell's Reach and Blood and Fire don't embrace the religious nature the chapter has been given recently. I would not be at all surprised if further books filling in the gap between the end of the heresy and this final battle built out Sigismund as way more overtly religious. It could avoid the all-too-common cries of retcon in this case, since we're seeing through the perspective of another in-universe narrator. In the interest of full disclosure, I do tend to prefer ADB's portrayal. For his part, upon entering the final duel, Abaddon is now fueled by the will of the Ruinous Powers, though he's not quite as powerful as he will eventually become. Namely, he lacks the demon sword Draknien. When Sigismund and Abaddon finally meet face to face aboard the Eternal Crusader, Sigismund says he's been searching for Abaddon since before the battle ended on Terra, which Warhawk has now begun to fill in for us, but he never found him. Despite the seemingly inevitable clash between the two, Abaddon makes a final play to sway Sigismund away from the Imperium instead of simply killing each other. He invokes the fate of the Thunder Warriors, who were wiped out by the order of the Emperor himself after they helped him conquer Terra, and says that the same thing would have happened to the Astartes. As real-world observers with far more complete access to information than any of these folks in-universe, we know that it's entirely possible that that's true. Kaon, who is observing remotely thanks to his psychic abilities, is surprised by the attempt to reason with perhaps the most stubborn of an already stubborn breed. Sigismund responds by saying the traitor Astartes have had centuries to justify their own actions to themselves, but that it makes no difference why they did what they did. They are traitors, plain and simple. Both Kaon and Abaddon seemingly feel some doubt as to their own cause in the face of Sigismund's response, due in large part to his simple purity of purpose. Abaddon passionately lays out his case, and Sigismund still apparently has some room for pettiness in amongst all that zeal, because he literally responds with, "You keep talking. Do I look like I'm listening?" Notably, Sigismund hands over the Sword of the High Marshals, the symbol of his current office that persists to modern-day lore, and he draws the Black Sword that built his legend during the Siege of Terra and that earned him the title of Emperor's Champion. The fighting is fitting of two avatars of their respective patrons, according to Kaon, though Aaron Dembski-Bowden does point out that others present at the fight describe it differently, specifically some of Abaddon's more boastful followers claiming the new War Master was merely toying with the ancient knight. I mention this because it plays into the continued trope of unreliable narrators that pervade 40k lore. Kaon, being the first-person narrator, is written to have a more reliable description, even though the eyes he watches through are in fact not his own. One thing Kaon points out is, no matter the outcome of the duel, Sigismund is going to die, and Sigismund knows it. Even if he manages to kill Abaddon, he and his sword brethren are outnumbered in the chamber where the duel takes place. Also, it becomes clear that Sigismund is indeed just a little bit slower than he once was, though Abaddon later says that merely made him equal to the finest Space Marine fighters as opposed to objectively superior. As the fight goes on, even Sigismund's unmatched skill isn't enough to keep him ahead of Abaddon's attacks. Sigismund, in a final act that is paralleled in many epic dueling scenes, decides to accept a killing blow with the hope of returning one. We don't get the first-person account from Kaon for this, as he ends up having to withdraw his consciousness back to his own body during the space battle. He hears secondhand, during that battle, that Abaddon has been wounded, perhaps fatally. Later, the critically wounded Abaddon tells Kaon that Sigismund simply wouldn't die. At the climax of the battle, Sigismund drove the Black Sword through Abaddon's chest, hoping to add one more tally to its long list of Astartes' lives ended. Abaddon believes Sigismund knew he was opening himself up to that fatal blow in return, and Abaddon delivered it, literally tearing the Emperor's champion in half with the Talon of Horus. Even then, though, Sigismund refused to die just a little while longer. It's at that point that Kaon accesses his master's mind directly, and we see what Abaddon himself remembers. He kneels above Sigismund, describing himself similar to an apothecary, and even in this moment shows his respect for the ancient warrior, telling him he would rather have not had to kill him. With his final breaths, Sigismund responds, "You will die as your weakling father died, soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed." And then Sigismund dies, finally. Kaon sees that those final words stick with Abaddon, and it troubles him. Most of the members of the Black Legion that witnessed the fight firsthand are killed to prevent them from spreading the story of how their own leader was almost slain by the Templar. Thus, only a very few know the truth. Sigismund's story doesn't quite end there, however. The Black Legion has escaped the Eye of Terror, and Abaddon wishes to send a message to Terra. That message comes in the form of the corpse of its most devoted defender, its avatar. Sigismund is sent back to humanity's homeworld, along with all the data that the Black Legion has from the battle itself, and the sword that Sigismund used to carve his legend out of the traitor legions, and that he nearly used to end Abaddon himself. That sword, which had read Imperator Rex, is now engraved to simply read, "We are returned." It's Abaddon's declaration of war. The conflict, which would become known as the First Black Crusade, was to be the first of many. While the Black Templars suffered terrible losses at the First Battle of Cadia, they would continue on with Sigismund's vows, his promises to the enemies of mankind for more than 9,000 years. If you've stuck with me for this long, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video. I almost broke this down into 2 scripts, but decided it was important to finish the story of Sigismund before I went into some of the more modern Black Templars lore. Also, if you subscribe, you'll help me get closer to the point where I can post community polls to see what topics you'd like to see me cover in the future. I do have some Amazon affiliate links in the description below to books I've referenced in the telling of Sigismund's story. If you buy the book from those links, I'll get just a little bit of that purchase, which will go toward improving the channel. Until next time, no pity, no remorse, no fear, and thanks for watching.